Hello there guys, Francis Gray, and today I've got a new model custom to show you all. This is the character Jack the Ripper, known from the hit Ubisoft game Assassin's Creed Syndicate, or more importantly it was Assassin's Creed Syndicate DLC, which stands for Download Content. Basically it was a mini side story focusing on Evie Fry and basically playing like a cat and mouse game with the infamous Jack the Ripper. This is Ubisoft's design or version of Jack the Ripper, because obviously nobody knows who Jack the Ripper really was. So basically they decided to create him but never fully let you know what he looks like or who he was. We kind of know who he was, but they very loosely like wrapped it and covered it in like mystery a little bit, and yeah, it's basically their way of keeping him like a shadow character. So he's a really good character in the game. You do get to play as him a few times, but the times when you were Evie, and sometimes you found Jack like watching you, and I found quite a lot of those scenes quite scary. Well, not scary, quite eerie, I suppose. Especially when like the London like fog and all that's rolled in and stuff. So yeah, I really liked the DLC. Wasn't to everyone's taste. Quite a lot of fans weren't a huge fan of it, but me myself, I really enjoyed Jack the Ripper DLC. Unfortunately, Ubisoft haven't yet created any statues or modelled figures or anything like that on Jack the Ripper. Not that I know of, anyway. So I decided to basically make one myself. This originally started life as a Watchdogs statue. Watchdogs is another Ubisoft game franchise. It's very, very, very loosely connected to Assassin's Creed. There's a couple of Easter eggs in there from Assassin's Creed, but it's not officially crossed over yet. So yeah, I got that statue when the first game came out. I really liked the sculpt, I really liked the look of it, I liked the pose. And I always knew it would make a good custom for something. Now, the only problem with that statue is his right hand is stuck out holding a gun. Now, quite a lot of Assassin's Creed games is focus more in the past, and they don't have modern day weaponry. And I know that some people say like, yeah, but you could be Desmond or whatever, from the... But it just wouldn't fit. It was just because obviously Desmond doesn't really have a long coat like that. So the only character that has a long coat, just like it, that I thought that character would work really good as a custom was obviously Jack the Ripper. So what I did was I took the Watchdog statue, stripped it apart, took it off the space, took the gun out, took the phone out, cut his head off, repositioned his head. Because I wanted Jack to be front facing, so it looked like he was intensely staring at you all the time, making you feel a little bit unsettling. So the best part about it is because they wanted to keep Jack a mystery, they basically kept him in this like hood, this like mask, which is a little bit like, I suppose, Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th Part 2, where he's just got like a sack over his head. So basically, that's good news for customizers, because with his head being chopped off, usually you would like fill the neck seams in and then let it harden and then sand it down and then add anything else like collars or necklaces or whatever the character has. But because he's just got like a sack over his head, it was really easy to just basically put the head in a new position and then just put Aves epoxy modelling clay on there and then just add the various like cloth wrinkles on there, and you basically got a makeshift Jack the Ripper right there. So you'd have to go too into detail on it. As long as you don't sculpt over the eye holes, as long as you keep them, you're good to go. The hardest part of this build was the top hat. What I ended up doing was I needed a strong frame to sculpt up and over. So what I did was I cut up an old soda can, I think it was a Cherry Coke can, and then basically cut a rough circle, or a circle, I suppose like a long, elongated circle. Cut that out, cut a centre circle inside, and I had to do that a few times so I had a good fit. they were either too big or too small. So I think it was like the 4th or 5th try I managed to get it right. Super glued it in place, then cut out a couple of centimetres, like a straight line of aluminium, and then wrapped that round. I think it joined at the back there somewhere. Super glued again, left to dry, Aves epoxied over it. The top part was hollow, and then all I did was just basically fill that in with Aves epoxy, left it to dry, and then got my Dremel, smoothed it all down. The best thing about that is Jack's hat's actually quite beaten up in the game, so I didn't have to go too perfect with it. You know, it came across as a nice beat up old gentleman's top hat. The main focus had to be the joining seam here. I had to smooth that right down so you couldn't see that at all. And then I cut a bit of vinyl in a straight line and then wrapped that around the bottom, super glued it again. There's a tiny bit of Aves over it to harden it. And then you basically got a makeshift top hat right there. With Jack having his arm out, or the Watchdog statue had its arm out, well, originally I thought that was going to prove a problem, but once I added the knives there, I kind of like that it's just out there. It looks like intimidating. It looks like he's ready to taunt you or chase you or something like that. So I kind of like that as it is. The knives I actually got from two Rick Grimes Walking Dead figures from McFarlane. Them figures are actually a bigger scale than this. This, I'd say, is 1:7 scale, measures roughly about 10.5 inches. So it's a nice fit for the Assassin's Creed statues. But the McFarlane Rick Grimes statues are actually about this tall, so they're a bit bigger. But there's no set description or whatever of how big the knives are for Jack, that Jack uses. So I thought it was a nice fit. So basically I just took two of them, super glued them in place, got the hairdryer, heated up the fingers, and then added super glue, curled the fingers in, kept them in place with a clamp, and yeah, and then once dry, they're stuck on there, which is a nice fit for it. Obviously sculpted the accessory stuff, like I suppose the shoulder cape. I don't know if that's a cape. I don't really know what they call those, like gentleman cuffs or whatever. I don't know what they call them. Basically these parts are and then sculpted more to the collar, because Jack's collar like comes out where the Watchdogs just stops. So I had to sculpt and smooth that down. Obviously I did these parts as well, these cuffs on the coat. And then I, just like this top part here with the vinyl, I did the same, but obviously thicker for the belt. So I actually just cut out a straight piece, wrapped it round nice and tight, fed it up and through like you would a real belt, and then I basically just cut off to like a V shape end, and then super glued it all in place. And then once dry, I went over with Aves epoxy again, so that's nice and solid. And then added these extra parts here that fit to the coat. And then just same again with the top out with the aluminium. I basically just cut out the belt buckle and then Aves epoxied over it, super glued it in place, and then painted it silver. So that worked really well. I did various buttons. The main problem with the Watchdog statue was they sculpted it with an open coat, like it's blown in the wind. Now, didn't matter how many times I heated it up or held it in place with elastic bands, this side here would not sit flush. It was always bending back out. So I had no choice. I basically had to just chop that off. And then I got another bit of aluminium, cut a V shape in it for the coat, drilled and pinned it to the figure. Aves epoxied over the gap to make a rough bridge. And then once dry, I sculpted over it again so it's all nice and flush to the coat, all sanded edges so it's all nice and flush. So that worked really well. Halfway through the build, I just grey primed it, ready to start adding paint. And then I was watching a clip on YouTube where a guy was running around from the game as Jack, and and he was getting up to all kinds of stuff. And then he jumped up, and I realised that the back of Jack's coat's actually got 2 slits on either side. Now the Watchdog statue just had 1 slit going up, so I thought, oh no, that's going to be a problem. So thankfully it wasn't as much work as I thought it was going to be. All I had to do was basically heat up the vinyl, took my scalpel, cut 2 extra new slits, and then the centre slit I just basically stuck together, super glued it, held it in place for a couple of days with an elastic band, left to dry, added Aves epoxy over it, left that to dry, got my Dremel, sanded it all down, added so it looked like it was fabric blown in the wind, I suppose. Yeah, and then added 2 extra buttons up here. And then once grey primed again, you couldn't tell, so that turned out a lot nicer than what I thought it was going to. Yeah, and then just basically painted up the figure from there. The only main thing about the paint that I haven't talked about yet is Jack has quite a lot of matted mud on his boots and his trousers and his coat. So how I achieved that was basically I got an old disposable tub, put polyfiller adhesive in there, mixed with some acrylic browns, a splash of water, mixed it all up to make this like muddy gunk. Got an old toothbrush, got it on a toothbrush, and then basically just flicked it on there. So it just spread it around there, so worked out quite nice. So that's more or less it for the main figure itself. Now we get to the base. So basically just an old wooden base that I got from a statue from a charity store that nobody wanted. I rolled out Aves epoxy modelling clay, and then basically sculpted all the cobbles. Once dry, painted it like a dark grey, left that to dry, and then added a dry brush effect of like very lighter shades of grey to make the cobbles. Once dry again, PVA glued in amongst some of the nooks and crannies. Got scenic grass scatter that is usually used for like model railways. Just scattered it on there, left that to dry, shook off the excess, went over with some matte varnish, went over the grass scatter, so that basically that just keeps it more unified, so there's no bits flying off even there. So that worked out quite well. Once I added the modelling clay and I sculpted the cobbles, I basically took Jack, where the statue originally was connected to the Watchdogs base, had like little pegs already like moulded onto the bottom of Jack's feet. Instead of me drilling and pinning it and smoothing that down and adding that, I figured it was easy just to plonk him on while the clay was drying. So it was basically shaped, made to measure, so he always fit in really easy. He's glued in now, because obviously if he wasn't I'd show you that, but he's glued in place now. The Jack the Ripper logo, basically that's the famous signature that apparently Jack the Ripper wrote to Scotland Yard, teasing them. There was loads of fakes, loads of forgeries, loads of people claiming to be Jack, but quite a lot of them were discredited as fakes, which in the DLC you actually went around collecting those, and then you could reread them, and it said like, oh yeah, this was most likely a fake, this one had credit to it, this one, you know, was more viable. Well, anyway, this signature, basically he said something in the letter, I can't remember what it was, but he basically said something in the letter that the police or the press hadn't released, and they said only the killer should know that. So basically that's the one that's classed as probably the you know, from the Ripper himself. So Ubisoft used the actual signature to advertise the game as well, which I thought was really clever. So basically I just wanted to incorporate that in the base somewhere. So basically I painted on Jack the Ripper in that signature style. How I did that, basically, after the base was grey primed, I added a couple of coats of white first, That just basically acts as a natural brightener for the red. And then I carefully painted on Jack the Ripper in the signature style, left that to dry, and then I basically went round with the black, and then just filled in all the white parts so you can just see the red. And then once dry, give it 2 coats of gloss varnish so it's nice and shiny. So yeah, it worked really well. And then once dry, I just basically I got some grey felt and then just added grey felt underneath, and then trimmed that to size, and then more or less that's it. So a nice custom one-off Jack the Ripper that should fit nice on my Syndicate shelf in my collection. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this quick look at review. Please don't forget to click the like button and share on Facebook and Twitter, because it helps new people find my channel, which I'm really appreciative. Thank you very much. Don't forget to follow my Facebook page, where I show in-depth pictures of the actual builds as I build them. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube for more video reviews and model kit builds, etc., and hobbying tips, etc. And nothing else to say but thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.